Hey, 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 it is time for the event. We are so excited because we are back again. It's July, it's the very beginning of July, and we are super excited to be here and to join you. We are on a new streaming service, so we're trying some new things. We have some new people joining us. It's a lot going on. First of all, we're starting a new series, Family Reunion. So we'll be talking about family dynamics, navigating family dynamics. So this entire month of July, we'll be talking about different types of relationships. So like parent-child, sibling, um, several generations. We'll be talking about friends. We'll talk about the families that we're born into, as well as the families that we adopt or the families that we choose and that we pick and the people that we choose to be connected to. So I'm excited. One, because family can be very exciting, but family can also come with some hurdles and some challenges and some barriers. So we want to help each other work through that. I'm super excited because um it's July and it's just a new month. This weekend we were able to host our summer social, and we had our big announcement that we are the Vent Movement. So part of that means that we'll always be here on Tuesday hosting, talking, having communal conversations, but additionally in the fall, right? Since we're on the move, we have a few things going on. So in the fall, we'll be meeting in person as well as online, and we'll have time to like study. So it'll be similar to like a Bible study. The difference for the vent, because we are a safe space to speak, is we'll have space to have that skepticism. We'll have space for you to ask the questions and not be looked at sideways. It's a non-judgmental space where if something doesn't make sense or you're not feeling it or you're like, this don't work for me, we can talk about that and work through that and do the work and have the resources and the theology and the text and different things and the life experience, right, to kind of back that up and see how we can work through that together so that you can work through that for yourself. We'll also introduce in the Vent Sanctuary. So that will be another vehicle for the Vent movement that will launch out or rev up in the fall. So we'll have a safe space for us to worship, to have prayers, to have intercessory prayer. It may look different week to week because again, we are a movement. We kind of flow with what works for the people that we serve and for the community that we build. So one week may look like a panel, one week may look like worship and it's just music and low lighting and kind of free flowing. One week may look like you don't know, but it will be what our community needs and what we kind of survey that is necessary for that time. So I'm super excited about that because we have some new things coming. September 14th, mark your calendar, save the date. Woo! We will be in Atlanta, Georgia, hosting another Vent social. So that social will the conversation will be around relationships. So we'll have singles on that panel, we'll have couples on that panel, we'll have people who are previously married and are not married anymore. We'll have people who are single, never married. We'll have people who maybe they don't want to be married at all, but they want to talk about relationships because we understand that relationships look different for different people. So family, spouse or partner, children, aunties, uncle, like work, ministry, like those are all relationships. So we want to look at that and talk to that and get good counsel in that. Hey, Miss Tracy. So everybody, welcome in. Come on in. I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited to talk to you tonight. Um, so tonight's episode is titled Dynamic Debt. So what we want to talk about is those conversations that we really do owe to our families. So for many of us, and it's not everyone, I understand that some people's families are absolutely very transparent. They're very open. They share everything. Nothing is off limits. They're open book, right? I've met so many families who are like that, but I also know many families, and this varies by culture, who are very can be very secretive or very much like we're not talking about that. Not very open with communication, and I won't say that at all that one is better or one is worse or one is right or one is wrong. But I will say that there are some conversations that we owe to our family, not just for the sake of having a conversation, but for the sake of empowering the next generation, for the sake of providing answers for those who may be seeking them, for the sake of building better relationships, for the sake of helping those who we have influence and who we're connected to make better decisions moving forward. I honestly believe in learning from your past to know about the future. Very similar to Sankofa, right? Go back and fetch it. What we know from back then and what we can gain from what happened before can help us to move forward. So that to me is a big deal. Hey, Miss Blunt. So we want to talk about that and we want to address some things. Again, the event, if you've never been into our space, if you've never been connected to the event, if this is your first episode, if this is your first time joining our space, the event is a safe space to talk. Nothing is off limits. We respect everybody's perspective. We respect everybody's background. We want your input. We want you to comment. We want you to be part. This is a community conversation. So we want to hear from you as much or as little as you want to share. Or if you don't want to share at all, we want you to come in, listen, and get what you need. So when we talk about family dynamics, we're talking about bloodline family, but we're also very much talking about coworkers and your whoever you work with, right? Your colleagues. We're talking about siblings. We're talking about parents. We're talking about cousins, auntie. Like there's nothing off limits when we talk about family and because many of us have family that we may not be blood related, but because we have such a close bond, or because we know each other so well, that's our family. So we want to welcome you into the event. Know that it's a safe space. Know that we want to hear from you. Know that we value what you have to say. And tonight, many of the questions that will come forth are going to be questions. We had our event summer social this past Saturday. It was an amazing experience. Many of you who are on the live now were part of that experience. So I thank you again for being with us Saturday, for joining us in the event vestibule, as well as for joining us here on the live. So thank you for coming in. If you're just coming in on Instagram, hey, Miss Tracy. Hey, Miss Sharon Brown. Hey, I see 4 stars, but I can't see your name. And if I say your name wrong, correct me, let me know. I see Hoy K, Eli. So thank you for coming in. So a few things that I want to talk about. The questions tonight will really come from, we had a box, and I'm going to show y'all the box. We had a box on Saturday where people could drop questions into, any type of questions dealing with any type of relationship. So the questions tonight will come from that box. But if you have a question that's not in this box, you can drop it in the comment section, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Drop it in the comment section. We want to hear, we want to talk to you, we want to be in conversation with you. So I did a lot of talking, right? And like I said, this is a communal conversation. So what I would love to hear from you guys, as we kind of talk about family, if we talk about relationships, one, let's open it up with this. So share a highlight from your day. So as you look over your day, as you think about everything that you've done today, what was a highlight, or what is a highlight? What's something that you're like, you know what, today, and maybe it wasn't today, maybe prior to today or today, you can share like a highlight. Like maybe for some people, your highlight is, I didn't have to go to work today, or I didn't have to go to school today. For somebody else, your highlight may be, I had a good conversation. Somebody else, I didn't run into traffic. Like I made lunch today and it was good. So I would love to hear about your day. I would love for you to just share one highlight. Like I did, somebody paid it forward and paid for my lunch today. I had a good drink from Starbucks today. I think my highlight for my day is I had a really good conversation this morning with one of my mentors. Well, I guess 2 of my mentors, 3 of my mentors. I had a really good conversation just around like moving forward, what the event will look like moving forward, kind of debriefing. And I think, so I will share 2 highlights. So one will be definitely having that conversation with my mentors and being able to, kind of share some of my fears, share some of my successes, some of my highlights, but also be affirmed in what I'm doing. And then the other highlight is we kicked off the Vent Vestibule. So we had a very good conversation throughout the day. I think the conversation started with like your favorite emoji, but then that developed deeper conversation about personalities and how different people interact with each other. So that was good to just see us interacting here, but also being able to interact in another space together. So Miss Tracy said the Vent was a highlight. It was a great vibe, great like-minded people. I needed it. So I'm so glad you enjoyed the event, Miss Tracy, and I thank you for your continued support. I think one of my biggest highlights from the event this weekend was it was a vibe. Like we were on the water. Hey Tony, we were on the water. We had a great view of the Nesman River. We had some good food. The crab dip was dipping. Okay, the crab dip was amazing. If you didn't make it, you got to come next time. Even if you just come for the crab dip, we'll make you stay. Like you might come for the crab dip, but you're going to stay for the conversation. So that was a big highlight for me. Just seeing people just smile, laugh, talk, enjoy, vibe to the music. We had our musical guest was absolutely amazing. So I'm definitely excited about that because it went really well in a sense of we were able to have conversations just like we have online. It was just in person this time. So that was exciting. So thank you for sharing your highlight. Tony said the crab dip and the hummus. I didn't get any hummus, but the crab dip was hitting. I think everybody's highlight, one of everybody's highlights from this weekend was that crab dip. Y'all, the crab dip. I'm trying to tell you, we got to go back. Even if we just go for dinner and get some crab dip. Hey, Uncle Logan. So we're super excited about that. So I want to thank you guys for definitely sharing highlight. Like I said, even if it is a highlight from the weekend, even if it was a highlight from a different day, my mom and my uncle are here. I want to highlight that too. And today is my cousin Nyla's. We talk about family. Today is my cousin Nyla's birthday. And yesterday was my cousin Makaya's birthday. I definitely shout them out for a very happy birthday. They're sisters and they're born some years, but they're born the 1st and the 2nd of July. So that's pretty cool. So the next question I have for you guys, like I said, it's communal conversation. I will not be the only person talking. So I definitely want to hear from you what you consider family. So how do you define family? When you think about family, Evelina says she's allergic to crab. I'm sorry, Evelina. I hope that you enjoyed like the spinach or artichoke dip and the hummus and the other things. So when you think about the word family, how do you define family? Let me make sure I articulate. How do you define family? So as you're thinking, I'll definitely share with you what how I feel about family, what I feel about family. So one, I think family is the family, like literally the bloodline, the family that you are born into. So the people that you are connected to biologically is your family, right? Your mom, your dad, your grandparents, your cousins, right? But I also think family has a certain level of loyalty. So that doesn't always mean blood, right? So sometimes as friends that you're very close to, there's a certain level of loyalty. My Uncle Logan said support. Like family means support. Like you have each other's back. You like whatever they need. You try your best to be there, to be present, to make sure that they know that you got their back, and it goes both ways, right? So that's not always blood. Sometimes that's friends that you meet and develop, and y'all been friends for years, or maybe y'all haven't been friends for years, but because you have like a certain bond with a person, that's your family. You know that you'll do anything for them. You know that you're going to show up for them, and you also know that goes both ways. Like the same way that you show up for them, they're going to show up for you, right? Family is support. Family is being present, right? Whether that's physically or you supporting them in a different way. I think family has a certain level of loyalty. Like there's some instances where even if you're wrong, like I'm going to defend you in public, but when we get behind closed doors, I'm going to get you straight, because if you were wrong, like I need you to know that from love, right? But I might have to pull you to the side and talk to you over here. And we're like, okay, you're wrong. You shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have did that. I'm telling you this out of love so that moving forward, you can grow, you can be better, right? Families holding each other accountable. family is, even when it's inconvenient, you show up. Like there's so many I guess like characteristics or words we can use to describe family. But yes, like Reverend Lawrence said, it's not always blood. Sometimes you bond with people, whether it's because you had experience together, because you go to the same church, because because you grew up in the same neighborhood, because you went to college or some type of school or training together, because you work together. Like there's so many different instances where we develop family with people who may not be part of our bloodline, but because you bonded and because you now are close and now you're close in relationship, y'all consider each other family. And it's just like you look out for their kids. Like my friends in college, right? Our kids are like their kids are my nieces and nephews. We're not blood sisters, we're not blood brothers and sisters, but their kids are my nieces and nephews, and vice versa. Krista has so many aunts. Like I only have 2 biological sisters, but Krista has so many aunts because I met people in college, I met people in grad school, and they're her aunties. And that's just what it is because they're with us and we're not going anywhere. Right? Evelina shared a highlight too. She said she bought 5 pants on sale today, some for $2. Yes, we love a good deal. We love a good deal. Lena also said she has so many close friends she calls family. They grew up together, and that's part of it. People you grew up with, right? You usually have instances and stories and experiences that you don't have with anybody else, right? But you have it with them. They're your family. Y'all grew up together. You got whoopings together sometimes, right? But you also got the praise and celebrate it together. Y'all might have birthdays together. Y'all got in trouble together. Y'all have different first experiences together, whether it be like a dance or going off to camp, whatever it may be. And Miss Tracy said family is sacrifice. Yeah, sometimes, especially with your children or with the people that you help take care of, you sacrifice things, and sometimes we go without things so that they can have a better experience. And sometimes they don't even know, right? Especially like our children and maybe our nieces, our nephews, our grandchildren. We will sacrifice what we have so that they can have something. But we won't tell them that, right? We'll just do the sacrifice and make sure that it happens because we want better for them. So I think all of these examples fall in line with like family. Again, whether it's blood or not, they fall in line with family and what we consider family and how we help take care of and show up for family, right? So thank y'all for sharing that. I really do appreciate that because that's many times when we think family, we think about, oh, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, my niece, my nephew, my grandma. But sometimes it's my sister, right? Or my cousin, my play cousin, my sister that I met in school, or my sister I met on the job, and we develop a bond. So thank y'all for sharing that. I definitely can identify with many of those things. So I'm gonna hop into the questions. Just so we try to keep this to 45 minutes to an hour because we know there are many voices in the conversation, but we also respect that we try to end at a good time so that people can have the rest of their evening or get ready for work in the morning, whatever they need to do. So what I would like to do now is kind of hop in. Again, we had some questions that were put into our box on Saturday, and I would like to hop into those questions so that the people who may not have gotten their questions answered Saturday know that we do value what you ask, what you bring, and we want to answer your questions. Just real quick before we hop into that, Miss Tracy also said, and remember, sacrifice is a choice, and not to hold that against them if it's not if that's not reciprocated. Absolutely. So what we will not do is say, "Oh, I did this for you," and throw it back in their face, right? I did this for you. I didn't go. I went without this, so you can have it. Like we sacrifice for the sake of making sure that people have things, but it's not really the right motive if we're throwing it back in their face. Now, sometimes we do need to get our kids or people straight, like, okay, now I've been showing up for you. There's a certain level of respect. But I think we also have to understand from the person doing the sacrifice that if you choose to sacrifice, that does not give you the permission or the that should not give you the permission to now throw this in somebody's face because you made the choice. Right? So it's not the right motive when you make the choice and then you try to hang it over somebody's head or constantly remind them of what you did for them. Then it's like, are you doing it for them or are you doing it for you? Right? So we want to be careful when we do that. And if you're always looking for somebody to give something back, you're going to find yourself constantly disappointed. And not because they don't want to give back, but often people that you sacrifice for or do things for are not always in a position, and you know it. They're not always in a position to immediately or ever give it back to you. We should, if you want them to do well, sacrifice, but don't throw it in their face after, because that's, you know, that's not the goal. Is to remind people what you've done. So let's kind of hop into these questions. The first question is from a work perspective, and again, these are from Saturday, so there's some written questions that we had in our box, and I really want to make sure we get some. Hey, Miss Rosa. So the first question is, and I want to hear from you as well. So what advice would you give to this person? And I'll read the question, and I'll read it twice to make sure everybody's able to catch it. So the question is, how do you handle a negative attitude on a job with a person that works under you, with you, or even your boss? So this is job relationship. So it says, again, how do you handle a negative attitude on a job with a person that works under you? So someone who you supervise, your colleague who you work with, or your boss, or someone that you have to report to. So on any level, whether it's your colleague, whether it's somebody you have to report to, or somebody that reports to you, how do you handle negative attitudes in that situation? So I would love for you to all to respond to that in the comments. Again, if you're on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, I want to hear from you. I can see comments now. We switched to a different platform. Woo! Right? So how do you respond to negative? So I would start off, one, think first, because often we let our emotions get in the way. So don't respond emotionally. And I know that can be difficult sometimes, but especially at work, sometimes we have to remove our emotion out and think about it very logically. So, okay, if this is going on, how do I best handle this situation, right? So I would say think first. So take a moment, receive what they said or what they're doing, and pause, right? Because it's not just about this moment. It could have been past things that have happened that are building up. It could also be things that you need to think about for the future. If I respond in this way right now, how would that negatively or positively impact me moving forward, right? And also, I want to pick up on something. So I would say, one, think first. Reverend Lawrence said, turn what they say or do around to a positive. Absolutely. So they say, you know, something negative, you flip it around. Like, okay, I understand that, but you find silver lining, or you find something to flip it to something positive. So yeah, maybe we didn't finish the report, but look at the progress you've made. Because before, you couldn't do this report at all. You weren't able to even start it, but now you've made progress. So let's celebrate the fact that you made progress. We're going to acknowledge, okay, no, it wasn't done on time or wasn't completed, but look how far you've come, right? Tony said, I know it's hard, but kill them with kindness by still being you. Don't respond with your emotions. Absolutely. So that kindness goes a long way. Kindness goes a long way, and it hurts sometimes to be kind and to smile and to keep. If we can be honest, right? Sometimes it's hard to kill them with kindness, because for some of us, it feel like it's killing you. Like, I still got to be nice to this person, and they always complaining, and they always finding something wrong, and they always pointing out what's wrong and never what's going well. And you're telling me I got to be kind? That can be difficult. But I think that if we put our emotions, our ego, our pride to the side, we can be kind. Now, let me be clear. We can be kind and still be stern. We can be kind and still set boundaries. You can be kind and still be, okay, I understand this, but we need to have these things in order. But often it's not even what we say, it's the delivery and how we say it. So I can be kind to you, but still be very stern in where I stand and let you know that there are certain things that we have to get done, and there are certain things that have to take place, you know. But I lend you grace, and I know that you're trying, but I'm gonna be very clear on where I stand. But I'm also gonna be kind with you in it. Like, there's a balance in that. So thank y'all for sharing. So yes, think about it. I will also say, with anybody at any point, I would say address them directly and privately. I've had situations, and I'm gonna just be honest, where people may have had an issue, or they felt some type of way about me and what I may have been doing, and it could have been a miscommunication. But instead of coming to me, they went to someone else. So that causes a couple issues. One, it can appear as if you're going behind somebody's back and talking about them, right? So that can cause unwanted and unnecessary drama. Two, when you approach people directly, it builds a certain level of rapport and respect. Like, you know what, this happened, but I would like to hear your side, or I would like to, kind of understand what's going on from you, versus trying to report you to a superior or going to another coworker, because now we have another, like, a drama thing going on that's completely unnecessary. So I would address them, and I would also wouldn't be like, Tony, why you ain't do, like, a room full of people? What I'm not gonna do is call and I know I can mess with Tony right now, because I don't mean this. But what I'm not gonna do is say, Tony, remember you were supposed to do this, and you were supposed to give me that report by 4:00, and it's 5:00, and you ain't gave it to me now yet, right? And it's 10 people in the room. Because now, what have I done? Belittled Tony, embarrassed Tony, made her feel like I put her on the spot and not shown her respect. So now that kind of puts everybody on eggshells, because it's like, dang, who's she gonna call out next? Right? So that creates unnecessary tension. I also would listen. Often we listen to respond, but active listening is listening to hear what they're saying and to join in on conversation with them, right? So they may be complaining about one thing, but when you really hear what they're saying, there's a whole nother issue. So you're saying you're mad because the copier out of paper, but what you're really mad about is something else. Because I'm really listening to what you're saying, and the issue that you're giving me is not the real issue. It's something deeper. Y'all know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you can hear it even when they don't say it. You can still hear it. I also, especially for someone that you're supervising, I would be clear about expectations. Like, okay, this is what we need to get done. This is what needs to happen. Even if your process may vary from what you were taught or what you know, this is what we need to do. This is our deadline, and be very clear and concise with that. And I also will offer them support. Hey, if it's something you don't understand, or you feel like you need additional training, or you feel like maybe, somebody didn't take enough time with you, I'm here. I got you. Let me know what you need, and I'm here for support, right? Let them know that you've got their back, because that also builds rapport. And I also would say, in many situations, I would document stuff. So if you guys are talking, I would send a follow-up email like, hey, thank you for bringing this to my attention earlier. Here's how I followed up with it. And I would send it to them, and I would CC myself or blind copy myself, so that they can't say, oh, I never got that email, or I don't know what you're talking about. I would CC myself, because people will act like things didn't happen. People get forgetful depending on the situation, right? So I would keep like, hey, thank you for bringing this to my attention. Here's how I'm following up. If you have any questions, respond to this email. Paper trail. So if they go to HR, they go to whoever, superior, there's a paper trail of, yeah, we did have that conversation. Here's my follow-up email. Here's what the steps that I took. Here's where we had a conversation. Here's a meeting that we scheduled. It's all a paper trail. You have, and sometimes we feel like, man, I shouldn't have to do all that. Maybe you shouldn't have to do all that, but sometimes you need to do all that to kind of cover yourself and make sure that you're good. And Miss Tracy actually just said that also on Instagram. Keep a paper trail if there is or was an issue. Absolutely. I tell y'all this probably every week. I work as a hospice chaplain. One thing that they stay on us is keeping a paper trail with clients, with patients, whatever, because their thing is, if it's not charted or if it's not written down, it didn't happen. And you can, because it goes between, it goes down to your word versus my word, right? But if I have a paper trail, hey, I called this person on this day, this was their response, and it seems very tedious, but it may be your saving grace in a different moment. Miss Tracy also said, and choose your words carefully and professionally. Absolutely. That goes back to not letting your emotions get in the way. Choose your words very carefully. Say what you mean what you say. Don't use too many words, right? Get to the point. Say it, but don't say what you mean and mean what you say. You don't have to do it. That doesn't mean that it has to be long and drawn out. Just get to what you want to have. Evelina said, God's still working with me on that. Very hard at times to put your emotions to the side. It is. It is. That's why I said take a moment, take a deep breath. You may have to take a walk. You may have to step out of the office and come back in, do that, and then come back to it. So I would say that if it's a boss, that can get tricky. So I would say, in addition to all of these things, keeping your documentation and taking a moment to think and removing your emotions, I will also say use I statement. So instead of saying you did this and you did that and you use I. Like I've been feeling like this. When this happens, I feel like, and often we hear that in therapy. Sorry guys, these lights I think are making my face itch. I think often we even hear this in therapy using I statements because I statements put it onto you. Oh, that's good. Miss Rosa said kiss. Keep it super simple. That's what I'm like. When you start getting long and drawn out, you can start tripping yourself up because you're talking too much. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Kiss. Keep it super simple. Get to the point. This is what happened. This is what was said. This is what was done. I sent an email at 8 a.m. addressing X, Y, and Z. It don't have to be a dissertation. It just needs to be short, simple, to the point. Absolutely. So using I statements with your boss, because that can be tricky when it comes to power dynamics, depending on who your boss is. So I would say use I statements versus you, they, because it sounds like shifting blame. I feel like this, or I've experienced this. Whatever, fill in the blank. And I wrote notes, y'all. So that's what I'm looking at. I will also propose solutions. Many people who are in a position to supervise or who are in managerial or C-suite, they are solution based. What solution are you presenting to me? So, okay, this is not going well. You have a negative boss. Okay, here's some things I came up with to try to relieve this issue or try to resolve this issue or try to move forward. What do you think about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Right? Also know when it's time to take it maybe to a higher level. Again, that can get tricky as well. So this is case by case. I am not an HR professional. I am not a consultant. I am not any of those things. So you use your discernment. You use your resources. You use what you need to use. But there may be some times where you may have to take it above your next. You may have to take it, right? We really take chain of command seriously. But if there's a big issue, you may have to take it above the person that's right above you, if that makes sense, if it gets to that point. But with that, you want to be very careful because that can have some negative drawbacks, but you have to discern where you are, know who you work with. And if it's to the point where you can't communicate with that person, again, like Reverend Lawrence said, like Miss Rosa said, like Miss Tracy said, document, and say, I tried to speak to my supervisor. I tried to schedule a meeting with my immediate supervisor. I've had this conversation with my supervisor. This happened. So at this point, I need to escalate it because I'm not making any headway. And I've been doing this for 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 days, whatever that case may be, right? So thank y'all for sharing that. That's one of our questions. So I'm not sure who wrote it because I don't ask people the right questions, but I hope that you're up there and you received that and that answers your question well. The next question goes into romantic relationships. So I definitely want to hear you all's opinion and your experience on this. So the next question is, so they want to hear from like a man asking women. It says, what has caused a shift in the nurturing behavior in relationships? So what they're saying is, this is from a man's perspective, is that women are not nurturing anymore or not as nurturing anymore. What has been, and before we chew on that, I have one more. Sorry, I missed one comment about the last one about the professional. Miss Tracy said my transgender coworker sent me an email that we didn't use their pronouns. I saved the email, showed it to her manager, but worded it properly because some rights for certain people can seem more important. So with that, I would say is keep your documentation and yes, do what you need to do so that everybody's on the same page and there's nothing that can be misconstrued. So this next question says, again, from the women's perspective, this is a man asking women, particularly from that perspective, what has caused a shift in the nurturing behavior in relationships? So they're saying that modern day women or women of this time are no longer nurturing. This is from a man's perspective asking women. So I guess I would say a few things. And again, you guys, please respond, because again, it's a man asking why women aren't as nurturing, or what has shifted so that women aren't as nurturing. I would say a few things. I don't think this is a blanket statement. So I don't think all women are not nurturing. This is me speaking as a woman. I don't think, because I am a woman, I don't think that all women are not nurturing. One, I don't think it can be a blanket statement. I think that there are a few things that kind of play into when it comes to women and nurturing. I also want to say this, and I had a conversation with one of my friends yesterday. Men can also be nurturing. Men also have the ability and should desire to be nurturing to their partner, to their children. That is also a characteristic that men can have. I think women get put into it because women often are birth givers, life givers, and traditionally in certain cultures and over time, women are the main child rearing parent. Let me say that, but that does not excuse or prevent or dismiss men from also being nurturing to their children, to their mate, and whoever else they need to be nurturing towards. So men, one, have the ability to also, we can both be nurturing, right? And again, that can either be learned behavior or that can be a born behavior. But often, as my friend put it when we had a conversation, men are nurturing, but they don't always know, because of societal and cultural pressures, they don't always know what to do with that nurturing part of themselves, because many of them are always taught to be, macho man mentality, right? So men also can be nurturing. Let me start with that. I think a few factors go into when women may not be as, if we want to use the word nurturing for the sake of the conversation. I think one, and this is conversations I had with my friends. One, let me say this: I love men, and I support y'all. I love y'all. I got y'all back every single time. I think many women have had such bad experience when they were nurturing and they were doing the gender role thing, or not, or doing whatever they felt was best, and supporting their partner and being there and being the soft place to land, and being everything that society and culture and life have taught them to be. And then they were hurt by the very person that they did all of these things for. Not that you do it to get something back, but in a relationship, there should be some reciprocation. So I think many women may put some boundaries, more boundaries, and more solid boundaries in place, because I've been there. I showed up for them. I was there. I cooked the meals. I gave the support. I cheered them on. I did X, Y, Z, right? And he still cheated, and he still disrespected me, and he still abused me, and he still, whatever, fill in the blank. So, and I don't mean one time. I mean multiple relationships. And what we're not going to do is blame women for, we should have chose somebody. No. That's not the case. What I'm saying is, after you're not appreciated or you're not respected over and over and over again, what you're not going to do, that's with anybody. When you're not going to just give that away. You're not going to just keep giving that away, right? I think that's one part. It could be past hurts, traumas, experiences where, man, I did all the things that the people say you're supposed to do, and this person still did me wrong. I think another part of it is the modern day woman has not had a choice. But not every woman, I don't want to make any blanket statements, no absolutes. Many modern day women have not had a choice, or have not had the space to be nurturers, because they have to pay the bills, they have to take care of everything, right? So it's like, at what point you even nurture? I got to pay the bills. I got to cook the food. I got to do the laundry. I have to do all these things, right? So it's like, I don't even know how to let go of everything else so that I can do this, right? I think the other part, and this came up Saturday at the event, some people have never seen nurturing, so they don't even know what it means to be nurturing because they weren't nurtured, or they don't know, have an example of what nurturing looks like. They don't even know what that means. So it's very hard for you to do something that you've never seen, modeled, that you never experienced, right? Men or women, no matter what your gender is, what you identify is, it's hard for you to do something that you never experienced, you've never seen, you've never been exposed to. So you're telling me to be nurturing, and I have no frame of reference for what that means, right? Sometimes we're naive to think that everybody grew up like us, or everybody has the same experience as us, and many of us have similar experiences, but everybody didn't grow up in a nurturing environment, right? Like it was stated Saturday at our social. Some people grew up in a survival environment, so all my mind state is survival, and I don't mean any disrespect to you, I don't mean any harm to you, but I got things I got to do because I don't have anything to fall back on. So if this don't work, like, I'm in survival mode. I got to make things happen. I got to get to this. This has to get done. I'm the only person to get it done. I'm the only person I got. So nurturing, like, that's cool. But right now, this is what I need to do. Right. So we have to be careful with that. How we kind of box people in. And I think the other part is men. Sometimes, not all men, some men hold women so accountable for everything, but you also need to check other men and how they treat, not just how they treat women and how they treat other men. Like, we have to take our own accountability. We can't put the blame on everybody else all the time, right? Everybody's not a nurturer. And that's just what it is. Everybody didn't grow up in a loving home. That's the reality. Do we need to go through therapy and counseling and work through some of these things? Absolutely. We got to give people grace, but we also have to understand that as a culture, we often think that our way of living is the standard, but that's not true. That's your standard in your life. But some people grew up in a totally different culture. Doesn't make one better or worse or bad or good. It's just different. So if I never see my mom be nurturing, how do I nurture? Tony said a lot of women have been forced to be everything for their homes now. Some women have been beat up on so bad mentally, physically, emotionally that all they know is survival mode. Yes, and we kind of tap into that. Yeah, if you have to do everything and you are the person that takes care of everything and you're the person that takes care of everybody, you know how to function in that space. I am the head of the household. I pay the bills. I take care of everything. I make sure everybody else is straight. So I may not even have, after I do all of those things, I may not even have the mental capacity because I can be so wired or so in ready to go mode that when you try to hug me or when I can't receive it because my mind state is what I need to do is make sure you got everything you need, right? So survival mode is I got to make sure things are in order. So I can't get caught up in emotion and nurturing. And Reverend Lawrence said, same. I think some women have never seen nurturing, right? Men, and I want to be clear, men and women. If you haven't seen it, it's hard to model it. But also, on that same token, reaching out for resources, counseling, therapy. But you have to know that that's available to you. We often tell people, oh, why you ain't do that? If you don't know, you don't know what you don't know, right? One of my mentors has taught us that, like, you don't know, and people don't know what they don't know. So you have to be careful when we shift blame on people because people don't know what they don't know. And we also have to you got to hold your homeboy, your uncle, your cousin, your daddy accountable for some of the actions and the disrespect. Because I've seen many women be disrespected, be treated as less than, and then you want somebody to nurture you, but they're scared of you because you disrespect them, you hit on them, you talk to them crazy, whatever that may be. So you want somebody to be nurturing, but you disrespectful, or you are beating up on them, or you're talking crazy to them, but you want them to be nurturing as well. Like sometimes you got to check yourself too. So we got to be careful how we treat people as well. Miss Tracy said the other question: some women are tired, they're taking care of family, kids, job, no time for themselves. It can be done, but it's a choice. It's not their mother, we're their partners. That's it. I think that's part of it too. Sometimes men want to be, some men, I don't want to just turn to a bachelor session, want to be taken care of. But again, reciprocation. I can take care of you, you take care of me, but there has to be some level of reciprocation and some level of respect to say, hey, I got your back, you got mine. But what does not work is when one person is being bashed or one person is being abused, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally, or one person has to take on all the weight, because it could go the other way, right? Well, why he ain't doing this? Because you put in like a level and a bar on a man that there's no way he can achieve it, and you don't feel like you should have to do any input or do anything, right? So we just got to be careful how we treat people, how we respect people. And when we look at relationships, know that relationships have benefits both ways, and relationships should have reciprocation, and relationships should have reciprocity both ways. Whichever mate you are, both of us should be putting in some work. Both of us should be contributing, and both of us should be benefiting. Because what's the point of being in a relationship if neither of us benefiting in any kind of way? Right. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you all for your input too. This is really good, especially thank you for the women that because we got a few different perspectives for the women that contributed to the conversation. Thank you for sharing because those are real perspectives. And I think one of the great things about us joining is we get different perspectives, and some of our things overlap, but many of them we have different perspectives, and we bring all these perspectives together, and we can respect each other, and we can come together and kind of hear and see what other people are experiencing and know that we're not alone in it. So thank you for sharing that. So let me see what time it is. We probably have time for like 2 more. And I want to hear from you on these 2. This one, so this next question, we talked about job relationships. We talked about romantic partners between a man and a woman. The next thing we're going to talk about is parent-child relationships. So I'm going to read this question twice as well. I'm going to break it up though, because it has a couple different parts. So it's 3 questions in the question. So again, this is parent child. So the question says, I have forgiven my mom from the abuse physically and mentally she caused. Sometimes she says things to cause old hurts to return. How do I respectfully love from a distance? I do all she asks and needs, but my emotions still flare up. So I'm going to read it one more time. It says, I have forgiven my mom for the abuse physically and mentally she caused. Sometimes she says things to cause old hurts to return. How do I respectfully love from a distance? I do all she asks and needs, but my emotions still flare up. So this is navigating like parent trauma, parent hurt, hurt from like as a child to now being like an adult, as an adult having a relationship with your parent that can be challenging, right? And I want to be very clear before we hop all the way in that parent-child relationships can be difficult at any age. So whether you're an adult, whether you're a child, whether your parent is older and you're taking care of them, that can be very difficult to navigate no matter your age, no matter your experience. Let me say that. I'm gonna be very clear on that. So again, whatever we share here is for you to take with you, and it's for all the questions, and for you to do the work you need to do, whether it's with you, with a counselor, with your friend group, with a mentor, with a life coach, with someone you trust. Take it, chew on it, and then do what you need to do with it. The second part of the question asks what word or scripture can I share as I move forward. So one, the first part of that I would say, okay, so let me actually read one of the responses from Instagram. So Aggie Chap, hey Chap, said the hard part is to reassess what your role in your parents' life is after you no longer depend on them for survival. So I'm gonna read that again. Aggie Chap says the hard part is to reassess what your role in your parents' life is after you are no longer dependent on them for survival. So now that, I'm out of your house, you don't have to take care of any bills for me or anything like that. Where does that leave us now? I'm out of the house. I'm doing my own thing. You're in your space. How do our roles change? What does that look like? How do we interact? Right? So I think with that, there are a couple things. And I told you I'll be taking notes because I read, I take notes, I think about it, I meditate on what you guys ask and say. I think one is setting, I think along, I guess, those similar lines, you have to know where you stand or know what your role is now or assess where your role is now. And there has to be a level of boundary. So you have to set some type of boundary. So a lot of people are like, oh, that's your mom, that's your dad. Sure. But that does not give them a free for all to do what they want and talk to you how you want and do whatever they want to do. There has to be some clear boundaries set. Whatever that boundary is for you, that's for you to determine what that is. So your boundary may be, I'll check in on my mom on Mondays every week. If my mom starts talking crazy to me, I will make a statement like, hey, if you're going to talk to me like that, we're going to have to disconnect from the phone. Not disrespectful. I'm going to have to hang up the phone now because I don't like the words that you're using. I statements, right? I'm hanging up now because what you're saying to me, whatever, I will call you later. I will call you back. Boom. We're in the, like, there has to be some type of boundary set in. Aggie Chet also said, are you to love them if they never change? Or are you called to hold them accountable for how they treat you or how they treat others? So that's similar, like assessing where you are, assessing what you're willing to accept, assessing what their actions are, because parents are not exempt from respect. Parents are not exempt, like parents are not off limits to just do what they want to do. There has to be a healthy level of whatever that, again, loving people from a distance is still love. Like I might have to love you from a distance and I check on you every couple months. I might have to love you from a distance, and that looks like, when you start talking crazy, I respectfully let you know I'm getting off the phone now. I may have to love you from a distance where I can't send you $400, but here's 20. That's all I got, and I don't feel bad about it. Love me from a distance, maybe instead of me giving you cash, I will actually buy the groceries and I'll send those, and I'll send what I can. And when I can't send what I can't send anything else, and that's just what that's just what it is, whatever that looks like. So setting healthy boundaries, and healthy boundaries are not necessarily always to keep the other person out or to push people away, but boundaries are there to protect you, protect your heart, protect your space, protect your mental health, protect, the things that you have in place and the lifestyle that you have. That's why you set boundaries, to protect you. You don't have to always look at it from like, oh, they can't come past this limit, they can't do this. You can also look at it as, I have this in place so that I can stay healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, right? Miss Tracy said, I try to remember that her mother treated her the same way. Breaking generational curses was important to me, but it's still hard. So this is her personal testimony, right? She said she tried to remember that her mother treated her the same way. So her mother's mother or her grandmother treated her a certain way. So now she's saying she's going to break the generational curse. And that's important to her. And like she said, doesn't make it necessarily any easier, but it does give you some type of goal or some kind of frame of reference as you move forward. Another thing I would say is self-reflection. So not self-reflection in the sense of looking at what you could have done wrong or could have done better, but self-reflection in the sense of, okay, what are my triggers? What do they look like? When do I know something may be approaching, so that my boundary can be in place before that gets close to me? So you need to know what triggers you and how you react to those triggers. And if you get, let's say you happen to get in a moment where you are triggered, what tools do you have in your box to help bring yourself back down or put yourself in back into a better mental space? And I would say, maybe more than anything, give yourself grace. So often with parents or with certain relationships, children, it can be hard to love children from a distance, parents from a distance. But you got to give yourself the grace to know that the choice that you are making may not feel good right now, but it's gonna be it's gonna be beneficial for them in the long run. And sometimes that hurts. Like even when we're talking about the job situations, right? Right now, it doesn't feel good for me to be kind to you and for me to stay professional with you because I'm boiling on the inside. But as we move forward, this is very beneficial because what I can't afford to do is go out of character, or what I cannot afford to do is put myself in or push myself back into a space or go back into a place that I don't want to be in. Right. So in this moment, I'm gonna take a deep breath. I'm gonna give myself grace and know that this decision hurts right now. Right. I guess maybe delayed gratification. I don't know. But in the long run, because I put this boundary in place, and I'm gonna say discipline to this, right? Discipline comes into play. This boundary is in place, and I have to stick to this boundary, right? I have to have some type of discipline, which means you may need an accountability partner. You may need a mentor that you check in with. You may need another person that's gonna keep you accountable in love and say, okay, this happened, or I'm thinking about doing this for my mom, or I'm thinking about this, for them to kind of like check you and run through a checklist. Okay, what's going on? What's happening? Is this necessary in this moment? Does she need this right now? One of my mentors told me, somebody calls you and they really need something. Like this is situational, right? Certain people, because some people gonna come to you every time because they know you're gonna bail them out, and you can't bail them out every time. He was like, tell them you can't do it right now, but call you back in 2 days, right? And sometimes they'll call you back in 2 days. Sometimes they won't call you back because they figure it out, right? So sometimes they have to learn to be self-sufficient, or maybe they go somewhere. Look, it's not on you. The weight is not on you. And I would say, Miss Tracy said, how do you give yourself grace? Absolutely, we got you. We got you, Miss Tracy. This is a safe space, and we got you. We're gonna make sure we do all that we can to support you and be here for you. But I think giving yourself grace means, and it takes practice. We say it like it's really simple, but giving yourself grace means not being hard on yourself when the decision you make doesn't have the outcome that you thought it would. Giving yourself grace is stopping and taking a break when you need to, and not feeling bad about it. Giving yourself grace is knowing that and reminding yourself that I did the best I could with the information that I had. Giving yourself grace is even reflecting on how far you've come, right? You may not be where you want to be. However, you have made some progress. You have changed some things. You've made better decisions. You have put yourself in a position to do better. Again, it may not be 100% right now, but how many of us really are at 100%? Like, let's be real, right? So giving yourself grace is knowing that everything is not going to be perfect. Everything is not going to work out the way you thought it was or the way you think it should. But that does not discount you and who you are and the progress that you're making. You're still making progress on the days that are the hardest. You're still making progress on the days that seem like you're just standing still. You're still making progress in the space of you just wanting to be better. Like, you wanting to be better is major, because for many of us, it's a mindset shift. So you just having the desire to want better and to pursue better is giving yourself grace. Recognizing that is giving yourself grace. So we have to, I think America, Western culture has tried to quantify everything, like, checking stuff off a checklist. But sometimes it's in an intangible thing, right? It's your mind shift. It's you, instead of falling to one of your vices, taking a walk or drinking some water, or saying something positive. That is progress, and you have to give yourself grace in that space. So yeah. I hope that helps. And a few scriptures I would say to help with that are Isaiah 40:29-31. It talks about they that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. It talks about renewing strength. James 1:5. James 1:5 talks about if you lack wisdom, ask, and God will give it to you. Because sometimes, again, we get into emotional space. We really want to move into seeking wisdom and what's the wise choice versus the emotional choice, or even versus the logical choice that makes sense right now may not fit my specific situation. Um, Philippians, this is a very popular scripture. Philippians 4, 5 through 7 talks about not being anxious. Because a lot of times with parents and with children, we think everything is rushed. We got to do it now. And that may not be the case. Take a moment, step back, evaluate the situation, take a deep breath, and then make a decision. Don't feel like you got to rush into anything. And then Matthew 11:28 talks about come to me, all you who are weary, or all you who are heavy laden, depending on your translation, and I will give you rest. Sometimes you just need that. You just need that rest of not carrying the weight that does not belong to you. Aggie Chap said, in reality, we are Black Americans who were born to parents who had to cope with trauma. Absolutely. It's not just familial, right? It's things that have happened both in America and abroad towards African American people, things we had to fight through, movements we had to go through just to get basic human rights, right? And having to deal with that and nurture your family, having to deal with that and have some type of spiritual formation and belief system, having to deal with that and still face issues day to day outside of your home has affected us. So we also have to give our parents grace, because they're also coping with certain traumas and certain things we may not even be aware of. Aggie Chap also said we need grace to understand that we might be more spiritually mature than our parents, which calls for us to serve the very ones who hurt us. So again, that's where the kindness and the grace comes in. And again, we don't want that to turn into mental, physical, emotional abuse, but we do want to be aware that many of our parents, grandparents, sometimes didn't have access to the same knowledge that we have, or have the ability to get it because they had to work, because they had to do other things. They didn't necessarily have the time to focus on this, right? What's that? Maslow's hierarchy. If you can't get past the bottom basic needs, food, shelter, safety, it's hard to get into more intellectual things when you're fighting just to find shelter and you're fighting just to have food on the table. It's hard for past generations to get past it. Not saying that they couldn't, but if you haven't even gotten on the bottom level, it's hard for you to move up into the self-actualization and to these higher levels of thinking and operating when your stomach is growling, right? So we have to acknowledge that that is a truth. Right. So I think we have a few more, but I'm just gonna do one more just because it's 10:03. I'm gonna do one more and then I'm gonna leave it at that. So our last question, we have two more. We'll bring these into our next week conversation. Our last question is what are the basic approach what is the basic approach to start a relationship? So we talked about continuing relationships, we talked about parent child relationships, we talked about work relationships. So what advice or what would you say to someone who asks, like, I want to approach, or I'm open to starting a relationship, whether it be networking, whether it be romantic, whether it be a friendship, whether it be ministry? What would you say a basic approach would be to that, or some basic characteristics that they should look out for if they are interested in starting a relationship? So I want to start a relationship. What are some things that I should consider? What are some things that I should look out for? What should my expectations kind of be? What should I be willing to accept? Along those lines. I would say a couple things. I think real relationships are built on honesty, right? You don't have to tell everybody everything right up front. Right? And some things are dependent on, like, there's some things you tell your coworkers, but you don't tell them everything, right? And there's some things your romantic partner knows that maybe your friends don't know. There's some things that you share, at home that you don't share at work, right? So you want to share things in the right space at the right time and at the right level. But I think honesty and transparency are great. Like, let's say as a boss, you want to be very clear if you don't know something, or you're still figuring something out. You want to be transparent to a certain degree. Like, you know what? Let me check up on that, versus telling somebody wrong information. because that can cause some issues, right? In a relationship, I think one of the biggest things, you want to make sure that y'all coming in on the same page. So while we may not agree on everything, we know that there are very few relationships where you agree on everything. And I would say if y'all agree on everything all the time, somebody lying, right? Sorry, grandma. Somebody ain't telling the truth. Right? So we're on the same page, and maybe we view how we get there a little bit differently, but we know where we want to go. We know what we want. We have the same goal in mind, and we'll work out how we get to that goal. I think being on the same page, being honesty, having a certain level of transparency, again, depending on what area you work or identify or connect with this person. And I also think that your values, your belief systems, again, this like more like romantic friendship, should be similar, very similar, because we want to operate in integrity as well. So if we already are starting and our values and belief systems are different, it's going to be very difficult for us to build from a shaky foundation. Ms. Tracy said mutual agreement. When they show you who they are the first time, believe them. Yes, and we talked about this Saturday. A lot of us date potential, or we're friendships with potential. Like, I know they can be, but what are they now? Right? Characteristic wise, right? People can get more money and they can, they can do different things. But right now, who they are, character wise, who they are, and how they act, how they treat people. Who they are now is who they are. They can grow, they can do all these things, but who they are is who they are at the core. So where do you stand with who they are? Right? So I think considering all those things and being very honest, I think we have to be honest with ourselves about who people are as well. When people show you who they are, believe that's who they are. That's who they are. If something don't feel right in your gut, no matter what you call it, intuition, you call it Holy Spirit, you call it your gut. If something doesn't feel right, lean into that feeling, and maybe you don't want to figure out what's going on and you're just okay with disconnecting, or you can figure out what's going on and explore that. But mutual agreement is very big, and being honest about where you stand with someone versus living in potential or living in what it could be. You have to live in reality, because that's literally where you live. And Ms. Tracy also said folks show their representative who they think we want them to be. Absolutely. That's why it's important to ask questions. That's why I say this all the time. When you are dating somebody, you're collecting data. Get all the data you need. You don't have to rush. You don't have to figure it out real fast. Get all the data you need and then make your decision. Don't make no decision off of half information or partial information. Get all the information you need and then move forward. Again, don't do it off potential. Oh, well, this job could do this and they promise this. But what is on paper? What is documented, like we talked about earlier? What is it that is factual and that you can prove versus what is in la la land? What they say, delulu. We don't want to be delulu with anything, whether it's ministry, whether it's romantic, whether it's family, whether it's friend. Don't be out here being delulu. Live in reality, right? And that's not from a spiritual sense of, God promises us things and God shows us things, right? But you cannot live in delulu land, where what you're making up in your head is good and it's amazing and it's great. If it's not reality, it's not gonna always pan out. So you want to be careful so you're not breaking your own heart. But I thank you guys. Yes, Miss Tracy said, trust those red flags. If it doesn't feel right or cause you to compromise who you are, it's not for you. 100%. When you find yourself second guessing who you are, when you find yourself trying to prove that you can do something, that you're good enough in any type of relationship, you need to reevaluate that relationship, because not only are they maybe misvaluing you, but you may also now be translating that into you're misvaluing yourself, because you feel like I have to prove to them, You need maybe have to be in a space where you have to reanalyze. So Aggie Chap said, ask them who their mentor is. Right? Do they have a mentor? Do they have goals? And if they have goals, what are they doing to reach those goals? So it's one thing to have a goal, like a goal without a date is something. It's a quote, y'all. I lost it. A goal without a date is just a dream or something like that. So if I'm reaching towards something, I should have something. I might not have all the details, but I should have some kind of plan to get towards that. And Aggie Chap also said, if no one keeps them accountable, that's scary. Absolutely. Everybody should have some type of accountability. Somebody that they not report to, but somebody that they check in with, that's helping guide them, somebody that's been there that's helping them. We all should. So if we haven't, and you haven't identified that person, it's a good idea to kind of connect with some people for accountability. So thank you guys for tonight. I really appreciate it. We posted this, and I'll post it again. But if you have not already, we do have like a let out, or after the event where we meet and group me. And if you have any lingering questions, if you have anything that you want to share, we talk in between these sessions. So tonight, if you want to hop into the Vent Vestibule, come on in. You can connect with our website. Our website is the Vent Movement. I'm going to put it in the chat. The ventmovement.life. And if you go to chat on the ventmovement.life, you can find the Vent Vestibule. And that's a space where you can chat. You can share information. You can catch up on on whatever episode, and you just have day-to-day encouragement. We had some really good conversations in there earlier. Again, our website is theventmovement.life. You can click there and join the Vent Vestibule. So after we leave here, we're going to the after party in the Vent Vestibule. It's a let out. You know how you somewhere and everybody meet in the parking lot and they talk about what just happened? Or you get out of church and everybody meet like in a narthex or the vestibule to talk. Or, after you go to the club, you go to Waffle House and you talk about the night and you eat greasy food. This is what the Vent Vestibule is. It's a place to talk, to chat, to come together, and kind of just, if it's anything else on your mind, to share. So you can jump in there anytime and we can talk. But I appreciate you all for tonight. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for coming to the first part of the family reunion. And I will see you next time. Good night, everybody.